NHL Insider Frank Seravalli has dropped a bombshell Flames trade report revolving around Rasmus Andersson. It's no secret that Razz has been involved in trade rumors all offseason, but he's going to be an extremely coveted piece for contenders, and Seravalli thinks the Flames really should trade the Swedish D-man either this offseason or at the trade deadline. We're going to get into all that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family, and let's get into this Seravalli update. What could this bombshell possibly be? And I mean, come on, you know I didn't come up with that title myself, but either way, Seravalli has an update for us, and it comes in the form of this article. So Peterka, Karlsson, and Andersson lead top 20 trade targets for NHL offseason. So the bombshell is Andersson is on the top 20, but where does he rank in that top 20? I would assume at least top 10, wouldn't you? Well, let's get into it. And here we go. The Stanley Cup Finals just around the corner. The scouting combine is next week, and 28 of the NHL's 32 clubs are fully immersed in off-season mode. It's about time the trade market starts to heat up. There you go. With that, we're back with 20 names in play to kick off our first trade targets board since deadline day in March. This is, of course, from Daily Faceoff and Frank Seravalli. As always, our trade target boards seek to blend a player's prominence with his likelihood of a trade. So that's kind of what you're going for. How likely are they to be traded, and just how good are they? How prominent are they? How much of a steal would they be in a trade, or how valuable are they? So where does our beloved Razz rank? Well, he is 6th. So, Rasmus Andersson, right defense from the Calgary Flames. He is 28 years old. In 81 games this past season, he had 11 goals and 20 assists for 31 points, and that means about 11 stare downs to the crowd as well. Contract, he has 1 year remaining at $4.55 million. So affordable for any contender, of course. So what's the scoop on Razzie here? Well, this is where the rubber meets the road for Rasmus Andersson in Calgary. Fish or cut bait. Andersson presents great trade value even after a relatively down year for a right shooting defenseman with an edge, double-digit goal scoring ability, and a very reasonable cap hit. In my opinion, that's why he's super tradable. The Flames aren't in a rush. They'd have no problem hanging on to him until the trade deadline to potentially watch his stock rise even higher. And you can kind of play the field and see who really are legitimate contenders at next year's trade deadline. So it does make sense, obviously, to trade him at the deadline next year, but you could trade him in the offseason as well if the right price is there. And we know Conroy is going to cook up something beautiful. But either way, Rasmus Andersson, in my opinion, is one of, if not the most tradable player this offseason. And obviously, I'm biased being a Flames fan, and personally, I'm leaning towards the side of, trade him if it helps us for the future. But either way, it is interesting overall. If we get a little bit deeper into his stats from this past season, as we saw, he had 81 games played, 11 goals, 20 assists for 31 points, which is pretty good for a defenseman. Not his career highs or anything, but not bad at all. The big startling stats for me here are a lot of giveaways at 107 and a minus 38. He easily led the Flames, or I guess was last on the Flames in plus minus 24 minutes of ice time. And it's interesting because at the beginning of the season, he obviously was playing really well with Kevin Ball. It was a great D pairing. But I don't know. Overall, just not the best stats last season, but he still has great trade value. He's in, kind of the prime age of his career. And like I said, the contract is the key thing for me there. But echoing what Frank Seravalli said in the Daily Faceoff, Ryan Pike from Flames Nation came out with an article as well, kind of supporting it. So let's get into what he said. He said, folks, one of the reasons we love the National Hockey League's offseason is the sheer amount of change that teams go through. Sure, there's the NHL draft, but surrounding the draft, there's the annual free agency frenzy and a ton of trades as the NHL's clubs seek to remake themselves in an effort to work towards a Stanley Cup championship. And that's true. We saw that last season with the Mangiapane trade and, of course, the Jacob Markstrom trade. So why would the Flames want to move on from Andersson? Well, Andersson's entering the final year of a 6-year deal that pays him $4.55 million against the salary cap. So two things are probably true. Andersson is incredibly cost effective right now for what he brings to a hockey club, and his compensation should go way up after his contract expires on July 1st, 2026. Fair market value for him on a long-term deal based on his experience level and production is probably around $8 million per season. So it makes more sense to, trade away this guy and maybe get some futures as opposed to signing a guy to a longer term contract at $8 million per year, especially when we're going to have other right-handed defensemen to pay big bucks, Zane Parekh. Now, we can debate the merits of paying Andersson fair market value until the cows come home, but if you're the Flames and you perhaps decide that the number Andersson's camp wants on a long-term deal isn't quite what you had in mind, perhaps you do what you've done recently with the majority of veteran players approaching unrestricted free agency and see what you could get for him in the trade market. This is the Craig Conroy way. He's done it obviously with Lindholm, Tanev, Hanifin. He tried to do it with Mangiapane and Markstrom, obviously, even though their contracts weren't exactly expiring yet. You can throw Toffoli's name in there. There are guys this year that could have been the same thing. But the Flames will probably have a better sense of Andersson's hopes, dreams, and aspirations on his next contract in the next little while. Andersson said during media exit interviews that he was probably going to think about it after the World Championships, which is now over, of course. And so if rubber hits the road for the Flames, wheels could start turning in the run-up to the NHL draft at the end of June. I'm sure we will hear Rasmus Andersson's name so many times leading up to the draft, draft day trades and everything like that. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But so far, this has all been about, how the Flames should trade Andersson. Well, I have a little bit of the other side as well. Now, I think this article came from Yahoo. I can't exactly remember who wrote it, so I do apologize for that. But what they said is interesting. So kind of more, I guess, devil's advocate in this way of saying maybe the Flames should keep Andersson. So they said Andersson ranked 22nd in shorthanded minutes on the ice during the penalty kill in the season and was top 5 in total on ice time on the team during the franchise's league-topping penalty kill run from March 26th to the end of the season on April 17th. That is a crazy long sentence. But either way, during that time, he was also top 5, along with Weegs, in most blocks in the league and 4th in the entire season overall. That is very important for a Calgary team that gave up the 11th most shots on net throughout the season. So Andersson is great shorthanded, and he can block a lot of shots, is essentially what is being said here. What else? Furthermore, being a 9-year veteran in the NHL will only benefit young Zane Parekh, who is also a right shot like Andersson. So essentially they're saying here he can kind of mentor Zane Parekh. But the other side of that is saying, would he be taking a roster spot away from Parekh? Interesting overall. The 28-year-old is a fan favorite, a leader, and a valuable asset for the Flames. A contract extension might not be a bad idea. What do you think? Comment below. And it is true. There are so many pros for keeping Andersson around. Would just obviously depend on the number of the contract, both in years and AAV. But there's pros to trading him as well. And personally, for me, I lean more towards the maybe it would be better to trade him. But I've kind of been thinking about that about a lot of these guys, and look where it's led us so far. So either way, I'll be happy either way. But I love Andersson. I would love to see him stay, but at the same time, it might make more sense for us to trade him. But again, feel free to let me know down below in the comments what you feel about Razz and these trade rumors. Now let's get into the comment of the day to wrap up this video, as we love to do here on the channel. Comes from yesterday's video, of course, and it comes from who else but Guitar Memoir. Great comment here. He said, I think there's a better chance of getting Potter at 31 than Nesbitt. Nesbitt is final ranked at 15th overall by Central Scouting. He may not even be available at 18. If he is, I would take him. If not, I would take Coots ahead of Potter. And honestly, both great, well, all great options for the Flames to take in Potter, Nesbitt, and Coots. Pardon me. Zonin is interesting. He had a great season, but really lit it up in the playoffs. He just seems like a great player who got better as the season went on, so maybe could take a look at him in that second round there. Trethewey is eligible. He is ranked top 50 by Central Scouting. So again, another guy that maybe the Flames could look at in those first couple rounds. And not too knowledgeable at the lower ranked prospects, so I'm just going to say best center available, even if he is a long shot. And I 100% agree with you there. Take the best available maybe for the first few rounds, but by then we just really need centers. That's what the Flames are lacking the most, so maybe it might be better to go after those positions in the later rounds. Absolutely love it there. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe like we saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.